I've always had a really high competitive fervor. I've competed in things basically my entire life between like card games. I played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, One Piece, video games, sports. When I was in the military, I did a lot of competitions. Basically, just everything you can think of that you can compete, I tried to compete in. And it's something that's driven me basically my entire life. Like I've always loved the idea of like working towards a goal and being the best at things. So it's no surprise that one of my friends who is a co-host of the Project Sundoku podcast on Spotify, he recommended me to watch this. And as someone who is obsessed with slices of life like Frieren, Your Lie in April, Your Name, like animes like that, like I've always loved animes like that. And while I really do like this film, it's definitely not my favorite. I have a lot of notes on just overall like my thoughts on this. I actually literally was like writing down on a notepad as I was watching the movie. It's the first time I've ever really done that. So I have a lot of notes that I want to talk about, and I'll give my overall rating at the end if you guys want to stay tuned to that. There are going to be some spoilers though as well. First one is the dialogue was pretty bland. Like I really did not like the dialogue too much. It seems like a lot of the time when you're watching slices of life, they give you a lot of like it feels like the characters have a lot of depth to them, but these characters didn't really feel like they had a whole lot of depth, which is surprising because this is made by the same person who made Orb Around the Movements of the Earth. It's another anime on Netflix. I love that. I thought Orb was great, and I thought a lot of the characters had a lot of depth, despite their very limited screen time. But these characters felt very flat to me. It felt like most of the time their only like motivation or inspiration was literally just like, I'm going to run because it's what I do. And for me, like that's fine, right? I mean, people can be like that, but it felt like all of the characters were like that, I don't know. I did not really love how short-sighted a lot of the characters were, despite also being wise at the same time, which we'll talk about in a second. Another thing is like Komiya was pretty annoying as a character. I didn't really understand his like character arc. Komiya is the guy that Togashi was the MC was training basically as a kid that grew up to be like a really good runner. And when he was a kid, he was like this depressed, I don't know, I don't have any friends, no one likes me. And so he kind of talked like a little weirdo. He talked like a depressed kid, which is fine, right? I mean, that makes sense because that's his character. But as he grew up and became like a super successful runner, and it looked like people wanted to talk to him and hang out with him, he was still like always depressed, which to me, I don't know, it didn't really feel, his character to me didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, why are you still depressed? Like, how are you the same depressed kid from when you were like 6 years old to now you're the same depressed kid when you're like 19 years old? To me, I don't know. I didn't really like his character. The only time he ever really like smiled was when Zaitsu basically told him that, it's not about you running, it's who you're running against. And then at the very end, he like smiled as he saw Togashi like basically neck and neck with him. Like that was like the only time he really like had any emotion at all, which was just crazy to me. I don't know. I did not like his character really at all. Same thing with like as far as the characters didn't make sense. Like when Komiya met up with Togashi after they hadn't seen each other in like a really long time, they were friends before they left. So why are you now when they meet up, they're like, long time no see? Yep. Like dude, that was your friend that got you into running, that helped you with your form, that gave you all these tips, and you're just gonna like treat him like he's some fucking guy who babysit you one time when you were 3 years old that you don't even know. Like to me, it just doesn't make it. A lot of the character interactions didn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know if I watched it in dubbed, even though I normally watch everything in subbed, but for some reason dubbed was recommended for this video, for this one. I should have probably watched it in subbed though, I'm gonna be honest. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt like everything was so disconnected and fragmented. I did not like it. I did not like the way a lot of these characters interacted with each other. I didn't like a lot of their motivations, and I didn't like how very narrow their character felt and how short-sighted their character felt. One thing I wanted to point out too was the animation. I thought the animation was great. I thought it was very interesting and unique. It's not something I've seen in a long time. There's a lot of scenes like when it started pouring down rain, it was just very, and then it like kind of faded into white. I thought that was a really cool transition. It felt almost live actiony and motion and live motion graphics. Like I just really liked the animation. I thought it was very unique, especially for a movie about running, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot you can, not a whole lot of like emotions normally that you can portray when someone's running, but they just did a really good job of it here, which I want to point out as well. The next thing I want to talk about is, while I didn't like the dialogue, this is something that kind of stood out to me that I want to hear y'all's thoughts about as well, and feel free to comment down below. But it felt like Togashi, the main character, he was more like sad and reserved and didn't talk a whole lot when he was at the top of his game, like when he was winning. Every time you would see him run, he'd be like, "Yep, another day." Like he was like very kind of he didn't have a whole lot of emotion, basically, right? Did not have a whole lot of emotion. And it wasn't until he stopped being the best that he actually seemed happier in a lot of cases. Now there's some cases that he wasn't, which we'll talk about in a second. But when he started to get to like high school and college, when he really started to compete, you would see him when he wasn't as good as he used to be, like, you know, walking up to the track saying, "Oh, hey, how y'all doing, everybody?" Like he was like introducing himself, he was greeting people. And to me, I thought that was very interesting, because this was a character that was very, very similar to Komiya, but in a different way as a kid, where like he really didn't have a whole like a personality. He really didn't seem like he cared about anything. And when he loses his sense of self as someone who's just a runner and becomes less at the top of his game, that's when he would become happier. It seemed like the dialogue that he had as he was slipping from his fame was actually more joyful than the dialogue he had when he was at the top of his game, which to me is really interesting, because I always feel like whenever I compete at something and I see myself slipping away, I can't really like lose very gracefully. And that's something we're going to talk about right after this. But yeah, it was very interesting to watch someone basically slip and fall from the top and go down to more so like the mid or even the bottom. He barely made nationals, and it was interesting watching him deal with the results of not being as good as he used to be, because that's something that weighs on me a lot, actually. But yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how hard it is to basically lose gracefully. Zaitsu, the best runner in the movie, he was always talking about, like, you know, this 100 meters can crush you or it can be everything. And they also talked about, you know, like the next race represents 25 years of your life. Quotes kind of like that, right? And it's really interesting because it is very much true for competing. And you see it a lot with sports, right? You see it a lot when athletes retire. Most of the time they try to find something to do with like being in the game, whether they're being like commentators, whether they're being analysts, whether they're being journalists, things like that. Or they do a podcast. They need to be around the game because they spent their entire life being around the game, right? And they spend their entire life doing one thing. And when they can't do that one thing anymore, it feels like their identity kind of slips away and they lose themselves and they lose really everything. But not even just that, but I think what's important to note too is that you really can be crushed by the result of things, right? And some of you guys are coming from some of you guys are like know me from One Piece, basically, right? And you guys came here because of that. And you guys know that when you compete in a One Piece tournament, there's highs and lows. Sometimes you can do really well. Sometimes you can do terrible. And I feel like the people that do they can do really well, and it'll be complete jubilee. It'd be complete bliss. And then you go into another tournament and you do terrible, and it's like, oh my God, my life is over. And it's just the case for everything, because the next win, the next high, the next tournament is not guaranteed, right? Who knows when you get to go to another one? Who knows if you're even going to do well at another one? So it feels like the most recent placing, the most recent tournament that you played in is going to be devastating. It's going to be devastating if you don't do well, because all that matters a lot of time for a lot of people is the result. And I kind of fall into that trap as well, where even though I was one of the most successful One Piece players in North America for a long period of time, whenever I didn't do well at a tournament, like, I had a reputation to uphold, you know? I had a reputation to uphold because I really wanted to be known as one of the best. And if I didn't do well at a tournament and someone else did well at a tournament, well, I'm like, well, fuck. Now, now what does this say about me? What does this say about my career? Am I done? Am I bad? Is this person better than me? And it feels like the results of a tournament, the results of anything that you compete in are going to destroy you if you're not careful. And me personally, I haven't really found a good way to deal with something like that. I haven't found a good way to deal mentally with the highs and lows of competing, even though I've competed basically my entire life. I always try to rationalize to myself of like, okay, just because I lose doesn't mean anything. And there's a very famous quote from The Office where it's like, it's one of my favorite things I tell everybody, even though sometimes it's hard to take your own advice. But one of my favorite quotes from The Office is from when Dwight was talking to Ryan, and they messed up some sales call or whatever. They didn't get the sale, and Ryan was like, I don't understand. Like, what happened? How did we mess up? Or like, what did we do? And Dwight goes, not everything's a lesson. Sometimes you just fail. And that is true. Like, sometimes you can lose and it means nothing. For example, let's just say you're in blackjack, right? In blackjack, if you count cards, which I know how to count cards, I've been banned from one casino for counting cards. If you know how to count cards, then technically you'll have like a 1 to 2% edge over the casino over a long period of time, right? You'll have a 1 to 2% edge. Just because you have a 1 to 2% edge doesn't mean that you're automatically going to win, right? It depends on how the cards fall. So like if you have a high count when you're trying to gamble, and you go, you put $1,500 on a hand and you end up with like a 16, and the dealer, or let's say a 17 in this scenario, and the dealer flips over a 20, then you're gonna get your chips taken. You're gonna lose a lot of money. And it's not like you did bad. You played according to what you should have done. The count was high, and so you put a lot of chips on the table. You stayed when you should have, and that's it, right? And then you lose. So that's what I try to tell myself. Like so not all the time is it the results that really matter, but it also is hard to tell yourself that, because learning to fail is not something that's in my DNA. It's not something that's in my vocabulary. I've always been relatively successful at everything I've really tried to do, right? I learned how to count cards. I became a really good One Piece player. I was a really good, like, when I actually tried to compete, like Halo, Gears of War, Naruto, Ninja Storm, Soul Calibur, like all these games I actually tried to be good in, I was good at, right? When I was in the military, I got promoted pretty quickly multiple times. I got a couple waivers. I won a bunch of like boards, Soldier of the Month, Soldier of the Year. Well, I never won Soldier of the Year, but I won like Soldier of like the installation, and then went up to like other competitions. But anyway, I was good at that. Like I wasn't the best at it, but I was good at it. And so for me, the idea of not failing has always been in my mind. Like, I cannot fail, because that is my whole identity. I'm going to obsess over something. I am going to care so much about something just because that pushes me and motivates me to be the best at it that I can be. And when I lose something and I'm like, and I laugh it off like, oh, whatever, who cares? It literally goes against my nature. It goes against my nature, because for me, I've always been the underdog in everything. Despite me, being successful, like I've had some like businesses when I used to live in Florida where they, defined success. I was able to basically live off those businesses for like multiple years without having to get a job, right? So like everything I've ever done, I've been relatively successful at. So if I were to do something and I would just laugh it off if I don't do well at it, it literally hurts my soul. So now I got to ask myself, do I ever really want to change that? That's the thing about competing. I think competing gives you that something to climb for and something to reach for. And if you are not completely disappointed with the results of competing for something, why do you compete? Like what matters to you the most? Like, why do you choose to compete? And in 100 meters, they say it doesn't matter if you win or lose. It's as long as you find purpose in what you're doing. So my purpose is always results oriented for me personally. Some people, they find purpose in, being happier. Let's say you go to the gym and, you're obsessed with like the process of like, okay, I was able to lift 225 last week. Now I can lift 230. Like that's huge for them. Right. And that's okay. But what do you guys define? Like, what do you guys feel like is your purpose if you win or lose? Like, how do you navigate that? They said something else too, in 100 meters. They said, when Komiya was trying to basically set the world record, or maybe Japan's record, I'm not entirely sure. He was trying to break a record. They said, I think it was Zaitsu that said, "You're staking your entire life to break a record. What a sad existence that is." That to me really hit me hard, because like I told you guys in this video, I'm always results oriented. I'm always trying to be the best I possibly can be at whatever it is I do. And a lot of times you define that by results. You define that by, like, okay, I'm going to get this high of a what is it called? An ELO. I'm going to win this trophy. I'm going to place top 8 in this tournament. I'm going to do something, right? Like some measurable task, some measurable goal. And a lot of times, for me at least, I don't know about you guys, but in everything I do, I'm always obsessing over it. I'm always spending so much time being good at something. And I'm staking my life on being good at a bunch of different things. And it got me thinking, is like, is that sad? Is that sad for me? Like, if my entire life is like me trying to be good at things, and I always have like a hamster wheel. I'm always on a hamster wheel of, okay, I get good at this thing, I move on to the next thing, I get good at that thing, I move on to the next thing. And it's just that constant pursuit of greatness. Is that a sad existence? And for me, I'm always living in the gray. I'm always living in the gray, because for me, I think that there's a lot of great things that come from the pursuit of greatness, but I also think there's a lot of sad things that come from it too. Like, for example, I don't think I'll ever be completely satiated and satisfied with whatever result I ever get, ever, because I know that that's just not who I am, right? Like, if I let's just say I become rich and I get hundreds of millions of dollars and I've made it in life, financially, which is probably one of the most important things that you can do in your life, is to like set yourself up, set your family up, and your future generations up for success, right? Would I be happy? I don't even know if I would. So I know that does suck. And I know that that's something I might have to work on. But at the same time, I feel so fulfilled and satisfied whenever I do really well at something I try hard at. Like, it really does matter to me a lot. So it's hard to find the balance between those two things, because it's so sweet and so bitter at the same time that I kind of love the highs and lows of it. And I guess the last thing we're going to talk about is when Kaido, he was the guy with the glasses who looked like way older than he actually was, but he was talking to Togashi about like escaping reality, basically. And Togashi was like, "Oh, I am escaping reality." And Kaido said, "You don't even know reality to escape it. You're running away from reality with your eyes closed, but you don't know where you're running. You don't know what you're running from. You don't know where you're running to." I'm paraphrasing that. Sorry if I butchered. But it got me thinking too, is like, sometimes you really do have to completely forego reality in order to live in your own happy delusion. And for Kaido, that he was like, I'm always competing against myself, right? Like, as long as I'm getting better every single day, then that's okay with me. And his reality was that Komiya and Zaitsu were two better, more accomplished runners than he was. But he goes into every race thinking he's going to win. And that resonated with me a lot, because for me, I've never won like a One Piece tournament, like a One Piece regional. I've been really close multiple times, right? However, I go into every tournament thinking that I'm going to win, despite me and never have won a tournament. And I really resonated with him, like, not thinking logically, because I think sometimes you do need a little bit of delusion. You need a little bit of there's no war in Ba Sing Se type of mentality to really like go for your goals. So I'll give you guys a perfect example. Like, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm always doing shit to, like, escape the matrix or whatever, right? And I know it's really hard to have a successful business. I know it's really hard to, create something out of nothing and then financially be able to support yourself long term. And I know it's really hard, especially when you don't have like a ton of capital. But I've tried so many times. Like, I will always try no matter what. I will find something that I feel like I can monetize or something I can build a business out of, and I'm going to attempt to build it up. And it doesn't matter if my past businesses weren't successful long term. It doesn't matter to me. I have this like supreme faith in myself that I'm going to make something happen. I'm going to be so successful. To me, it's not even a question if I will will or will not be successful. It's just like, it's only a matter of when. And I'm always escaping reality of, oh, it's hard, oh, it's difficult, oh, you know, the success rates of people. I don't care. I don't care. And I do think that's something that should resonate with all of you guys as well, is like, sometimes that, you know, the odds can be stacked against you, and you can come out ahead every single time. Or maybe not every time, but sometimes the odds can be stacked against you. And if you are successful one time, then you beat the odds, right? So all you have to do is keep trying. And I'll give you guys like a little underdog story of mine. So I grew up very antisocial, very awkward. I had no friends. I didn't get along with my family. I literally had no one in my life, right? I grew up really poor. My dad, he passed away when I was a kid. I had like barely any guidance from anyone whenever I was a kid. And I was bullied in middle school. I was bullied in elementary school. In high school, I was like, you know what? I want to change I want to change my life. Like, I want to be somebody different in high school. So the first thing I started to do was just something I thought was easy. I wanted to make some friends. So I started, like, I had this like crazy social, like, I was so scared of talking to anyone. It felt like there was like a lump in my throat anytime I tried to talk to anyone. And there's this one dude in my freshman year algebra class. You seemed like a cool dude. And I was like, I want to be this dude's homie. And so I talked, I like worked up, it sounds like lame, right? But I like worked up like the courage to talk to this dude, and we became friends. Like the more I started talking, the less social anxiety I had. So then I started, you know, making friends. I had some really good friends in 9th and 10th grade that I made from, you know, that I never really had before. And then in 11th grade, I went into the summer of 10th grade, and I was like, I want to lose a ton of weight. I was like super fat. I was like 280 pounds, I think, when I was like in 10th grade. And so I went into that summer. I ran every fucking day. I literally ran every single day. And I started only being able to run like 100 feet. And then I was like, okay, well, I can't run anymore, so I'm going to go back home. Then the next day I ran like 105 feet. The next day I ran 110 feet. And then eventually I was running, but before the summer ended, I was running 4 miles a day. It was crazy. And I lost like 75, 80 pounds, something like that. And I'm 6'2", so I was like pretty lean at that point. I was like maybe like 200 pounds of just at 6'2". Like that's pretty lean. And then I got like my first girlfriend. Like my life completely changed. And all I did was like have that thing in mind where like I wanted my life to get better, and I wanted to ignore the reality of like, oh, I don't have running. Like I was poor. I didn't have running shoes. I was running in fucking DCs, like literal DC shoes, like skater shoes. I was running in that. And when those broke, I was literally running barefoot. And another thing, guys, right now, like I was in the mental hospital. I bipolar 1. I was going to kill myself. They put me on all these different mood stabilizers. They put me on all these different, like antidepressants, and the side effects were like weight gain. I gained like 100 pounds. I went from being 6'2", like 200, like I was like basically ever since I lost that weight in high school, to like 300 plus pounds. And I woke up, I didn't even fucking recognize myself. And I've lost, I was like so my last notable, like when I actually checked, I was 291. Before, but that was like after I had the confidence of like stepping on a scale. I was probably 305 pounds, maybe a year ago, right? Or something like that. And now I've lost about 50 of that and that's another thing, is like me being an underdog is like, dude, I have done everything I could to escape reality of like, okay, just because I'm out of shape now doesn't mean I'm going to be out of shape forever. I'm going to push past my exhaustion. I'm going to push past my comfort zone, and I'm going to accomplish the things I want to accomplish because they're important. And so I know I told a lot of like personal stories, but that's what I think about whenever I watch a lot of these like slices of life, these like inspirational type of animes or movie TV shows. It really makes me reflect on my own life and like and see if I can really learn something from this in particular. So with that being said, I want to hear what you guys have to say. Like, did this really move you guys at all? Did this do anything for you guys to maybe change the way you think, change your perspective? Maybe motivate you. I'm not entirely sure. I think this movie overall was about an 8 out of 10. I definitely think Your Lie in April was just a better overall, more impactful instantly. But I do really like there are certain aspects of the movie that reminded me of my life, and I'm curious to see if it resonated with you guys as well. So with that being said, subscribe to the channel. If you made it this far, you're 25 minutes into the video. I want to make more videos more consistently. That's something I'm going to put my mind to over the next couple months. So you guys should be seeing me 2, maybe 3 times a week. And we'll just see where I can take this channel. I'll catch you guys later.